Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm Uncle Gray, and today we're going to learn how to create this cool bitmap style effect in Touch Designer. This is a beginner friendly tutorial, so you don't need any prior Touch Designer knowledge to learn how to do this. This tutorial is all based on work by Xtao. There'll be a link down below in the description to their tutorial, and this is basically a variation on that with a slightly different approach to the same basic idea. How it works is effectively what we're doing is rendering out a tiny circle for every pixel, and then that circle is getting bigger or smaller depending on the brightness of the image below. So you get this cool kind of grid-like grainy pattern texture that gets layered onto your videos. Awesome, so let's get into it. So here you can see the network we have, and it's not particularly large. And we've got this bitmap scale parameter that we can turn up and down, and it kind of increases the size or decreases the size of our circles. So if we bring it right down, you can see it's just a bunch of different circles getting bigger and smaller. And then as we bring it back up, you get these kind of grainy textures that are quite nice. Now this works for a video or an image. So if I substitute an image in here, you get the same effect there. Awesome, so let's get rid of this and start from scratch here. Just going to shift click to delete all this and hide the palette. We're going to start by dropping a video. I just downloaded this one from Pexels, just a stock video. There'll be a link to it down below in the description, or you can use one of your own videos or any other one that you downloaded on the internet for this. So we can just drag and drop it into Touch Designer to use it. And after it, we're just going to drop a null. And you open this dialog window by pressing Tab. So just press Tab, select a null. Cool, so I'm going to press Tab again and go over to our chops and drop a constant chop. I'm going to rename it to bitmap_scale and set this value to 0.1. Then I'm going to drop down a info chop, and I'm going to drag this null over top of the info chop and just let it go. Now you can see in our info here we've got a bunch of information about the video, but all we're really interested in is the resolution X and resolution Y. So in our scope, we're going to select Res X and Res Y from the drop down menu. Awesome, so now we want to scale our resolution by our bitmap. So currently it's 0.1, so that's a tenth of the size. So out from our info, we're going to drop down a math chop and connect our bitmap scale to it. And then in combine chops, we're going to select multiply. And this will scale our resolution to the lower resolution, basically, that according to our bitmap scale parameter. Now in the integer section, we also want to select floor, so that if we have a resolution that's not easily divisible, it'll be forced to be an integer value, because you can't have a half a pixel. You can only have a whole pixel. Awesome. So after this math, I'm going to drop down a merge chop, and then after the merge, I'm going to drop down a null. And this null I'm going to rename to params, and this is where we're going to have all our parameters. Now something I forgot to do is these aren't our original resolutions, right? They're a tenth of those, so I'm going to rename these in the common tab of our math, go down to rename to sresx and sresy for scaled resolution X and scaled resolution Y. Cool. Then I'm going to connect our info straight into our merge to. So then here we can see we've got our scaled resolutions and our original resolutions in our parameters chop. After the info, I'm going to add another math to calculate the aspect ratio. So if we go in the combined channels, we set it to divide. this is going to calculate our aspect ratio from x to y, of x to y, and we want the inverse, we want of y to x. So in the channel post operator, we're just going to select inverse. That'll give us that. Then again, we're going to go to the comment tab and rename to ratio. And then we'll pipe this into our merge, and then we've got all our parameters set up and ready to go. Just going to drag our video down a bit to give us a bit of space. And then after our null, we're going to drop a resolution top. In the comment tab, instead of our use input, we're going to go down to custom resolution. We're going to turn our parameter viewer active on by clicking the button in the bottom right hand corner. And then drag our sresx onto our resolution x and set it to be chop reference. And then do the same thing for our sresy. And in the pixel format of our resolution, we're going to set it to 32-bit float RGBA. Then after our resolution, we're going to drop a monochrome top and a math top. So how this is basically going to work is for every pixel, we're going to create a little circle. So to do that in Touch Designer, use a technique called instancing. So first we're going to create a grid of points where each circle is going to go. And then later we're going to replace them with circles. So to do that, we use a ramp top. And in our ramp, in the comment tab, we're again going to drag on the sresolution x as a chop reference and the sresy as a chop reference. And again, set the pixel format to 32-bit float RGBA. And we're going to copy and paste this ramp. And in our second ramp, we'll change it to vertical. Now coming out of our ramps, we're going to create a reorder. We're going to put our second ramp into the second input of the reorder. In the reorder, we're going to select in output green, we're going to select input 2. And then our output blue, we're going to set to 0. And what this basically does is we're going to use our red values. They go from 0 to 1 as our x coordinates. And our green values, they go from 0 to 1 vertically as our y coordinates to create a grid. Now, this probably doesn't make sense, but if we make our reorder viewer active, right click, view as points, we can see this, this grid of points has been created that go from 0 to 1 in the x and 0 to 1 in the y. So, we want our grid to be the same ratio as our input image. So, what we're going to do is we're going to scale it down and squish it vertically using the green. So, we're going to drop down a math top, and then in the range, in the green 2 range, we're going to get our ratio from our parameters and drop that in the 2 range here. And then if we view this as points, we're going to see that our grid is now the same ratio as our input image. Awesome. So after the math, we're going to drop a reorder down. And then after the reorder, we're going to drop a null. And this null we're going to rename to instancing. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Instancing. And this is what we're going to use, again, to control our instancing. Now below from this math, we're going to drop that into the reorder second input. And in the second reorder, under output blue, we're going to select input 2. And then you can kind of see we've got our image overlaid in green over our grid. Now, if we have, so currently we've got scaled resolution x of 100. That means there's going to be 100 circles across the x in the horizontal direction. Now our values here for the scale are much too big. They're between 0 and 1. And we need each circle to be a lot smaller than that. So, in this math, what we're going to do is we're going to scale them down and make them really small. Because we're going to use this blue value to be the size of the circle. So what we're going to do is drag our sresx into our multiply and set chop reference. Then we're going to click in here, and in front of it we're going to go 1 divided by our parameter, and then afterwards we're going to go divided by 2 and hit enter. And you'll see here it goes to a very, very small number, 0.046. Now it looks like in here that there's absolutely nothing going on, that is just 0. But if we go into our reorder, set it to viewer active, right click and normalize split, we can see all this information is still there, it's just really, really small, which is how we want it. Awesome, so now we're going to set up our rendering for the instancing. So of course we're going to start with a circle SOP because we're going to have a bunch of circles. We're going to change the divisions down to 20. You can put your divisions even further than this if your computer is struggling with the rendering. But yeah, I'm just going to leave mine at 20. Then out of the circle, I'm going to click, so I've got this little lead attached to me, then press tab, and then select a geometry. If you don't have the lead connected, it won't be set as the input to the geometry and it won't work correctly. So be sure you click out of the edge of that circle. Then above it, we're going to drop down a camera comp, a constant material, and a render top. Now we're going to drag our constant material onto our geometry and select palm material. Awesome, so looks like we're getting a circle rendered out here. After this render, I'm just going to drop a null and select the little blue button to make it viewer active so we can see it. Now personally, I don't like having my visuals behind my network, so I'm going to right click, display, and unselect backdrop tops. Then up here in the pane layout, I'm going to select split pane. And then in the drop down up here, I'm going to select top viewer. So now we're seeing what we're doing in this side panel here. Cool, so now let's start our instancing. So in our geometry, in the first instancing tab, we're going to turn instancing on. We're going to drag our instancing top into the default instance OP. And first we're going to do the scale to make it really small. So in the scale X, we're going to select B. Scale Y, we're going to select B for our blue channel that we used over here. So effectively we're using this as our scale information. So our circle's gotten really, really small. And now we're going to create a grid by using this translate part. So in translate X, we're going to select R, because in the X direction we want to use our red channel, and for Y we're going to select G, because we want to use our green channel. And we can kind of see it's being rendered out there. Now let's fix our camera. So in the view, we want to swap from perspective to orthographic, set it to bottom left, and the ortho width to 1. Awesome. So you can kind of see it's being rendered out, and as the image moves, the scale of the circles is getting larger and smaller. So now in our render, we're going to set our background alpha to 1. So we've got a black background here. And then in the common tab, we're going to drag our original resolution X and Y in here. So resolution X, resolution Y is chop references. Awesome. And now this is the basic effect. When we go back to our bitmap scale, we change that up. See it's changing and we get a different texture. And as we go down, it gets smaller and more circle-like. So I'm just going to leave it at 0.7 for now. And now we're just going to do some post-processing and add some colors and stuff. But this is the basic effect completed. So after my render, I'm going to assert an operator, a level, because it looks a bit dark to me. So I'm just going to increase the brightness to 1.5 to make it a bit brighter. Then now we're going to add some color, and there's a few different ways to go about adding color. So the first and simplest way is to use the colors from our input video or image. So what I'll do is drop down a select top, go over to our resolution and drag this into this top section here. And this will basically duplicate what's in that resolution section over here, just so we don't have to have a big long chain coming from back over there. And then we're going to insert a multiply top and put our select into the second input. So you can see here it's kind of got this grainy dim texture, but it's still got the essence of colors from the input image. Another way to go about it, and I'll just bypass this for now with the little bypass button there, which basically disables this node from working. Then afterwards we can use a lookup and a ramp. So I'll drop down a lookup, and below it I'll drop down a ramp. Connect the ramp to the second input of the lookup, and now as I change the colors in the ramp, it'll change the colors in the image. So I'm just going to click about here to create a new color. I might make like a kind of greeny blue color, bring the saturation up. Oh yeah, maybe a bit greener. Yeah, nice. And then I kind of like it with the white highlights in the clouds. I might replace the black with a kind of deep reddish color. Cool, but yeah, you can choose whatever colors you want in this section, and you can always drag these little color windows around to change how much of the image the color is affecting. My personal favorite is to use a noise to color the image though. So I'm going to insert a noise and use both inputs of the noise here, turn monochrome off, and in output select noise. And effectively what this does is it's the same as the lookup and a ramp, except the color palette is randomly generated. So I'm going to go up here and set the period up to 2, and then you can just move through different seeds until you get a color palette that you like. So I'm going to middle mouse button over the seed, drag up to this one, and then just drag to the right. And then you can just slowly cycle through different color palettes till you find one that you like. That one's quite nice. I'm just going to go, yeah, let's stick with that one for now. If you want to kind of see what this noise is doing under the hood, you can just copy and paste it and drop down a ramp, connect the ramp to both inputs, and then you can see here this color palette generated is basically what this noise is using to color the image. Same as what the lookup does with this ramp. And as you change parameters, for example, as you bring the period down, you get more colors, and as you bring it up, you get less colors. And you can also have a play with different parameters to kind of visualize what it's doing to your color palette. But we'll just delete these for now. The other thing you can do is add a blur. So if I just shift click all of these and move them along, after the render, add a blur. And this creates a weird kind of effect where all the colors that are the same kind of bleed into each other, and you kind of create this blockiness. But I'm just going to bring this down so it's really, really minor, just to filter size of 2. The other thing you can do to kind of change it up is after the monochrome, you can add a level. And in this level you can just play with the brightness, gamma and contrast to just change up how it looks. Like I might set the contrast up there to 2. I like how that looks with more vivid pixelated colors. But you just have a play and see what looks good to you for your different videos. But yeah, this is the basic effect. The project files for this will be available on my Patreon, where you can support me. Definitely go check out Xtal and their amazing tutorial that this work is based off. It's really, really cool. If you have any questions or if this tutorial isn't working for you or anything like that, just let me know down in the comments below. And if you use this and like to post work online, please do tag me. I love to see what you guys create with this and what creative things you end up using it for. But yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and I'll see you next time. Stay well. Ka kite.